I'm Philip Ward and I work as a Professor of Global Water Risk Dynamics at Vrije Universiteit Amsterdam. One of the major challenges faced by society are floods. They cause billions of euros of damage and millions of fatalities every year. As a result of climate change and growing populations, flood risks are expected to grow in the future. To reduce flood risk, we need to understand the three drivers of flood risk. The first driver is the hazard. This refers to the physical flooding event, including characteristics like the extent, the depth, the velocity of the floodwater, and so forth. This city is facing flooding from various sources: the sea, rainfall, swollen rivers, and groundwater. The second driver of flood risk is the exposure, which refers to the objects that are potentially in harm's way if a flood were to occur. In this city, we see several neighbourhoods. The buildings, the people, and their livelihoods are all exposed to the flood. The third driver of flood risk is the vulnerability. This refers to how susceptible those exposed elements are to the hazard. In the neighbourhood in the centre of this image, houses have been raised on stilts so that they are less vulnerable to the flood. The good news is that there are many ways to reduce flood risk. The Netherlands is well known around the world for its huge system of levees, storm surge barriers, and dunes, which help us to reduce the flood hazard. We can reduce the exposure through spatial zoning, for example, using the most flood-prone areas for recreation. We can also reduce the vulnerability by building elevated houses or waterproofed houses, designing early warning systems and evacuation systems, and so forth. To make society more resilient to flooding, we need to be able to measure and monitor changes in hazard, exposure, and vulnerability. We need to understand the interactions between them. We need to develop models to project changes in future flood risk. This is one example of an urgent challenge in hydrology that can only be solved by combining an understanding of physical and societal processes. At Vrije Universiteit Amsterdam, our teaching and research takes such an interdisciplinary approach. If you want to contribute to solving this challenge, come study at Vrije Universiteit Amsterdam.